what's up, everyone? Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Really excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. Today, I'm excited to have Clayton on with us and excited to talk to Clayton because he just finished going through the summer 2025 recruiting process. He's someone that we've been working with for the past year. So it's actually been a good amount of time and was able to walk away with a very good offer that I think he's pretty happy with. So wanted to get him come on here, share his story, uh, also share some insights along the way in terms of how he was able to get this outcome so that hopefully you guys can have some takeaways of your own and it'll help you with your own recruiting process as well. So with that said, Clayton, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. And if you don't mind, just introduce yourself real quick for our audience, give them a sense of kind of who you are, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, of course. Hello everyone. My name's Clayton. Good to see you, Sam. I I actually grew up in Taiwan on a farm, and as a little kid, I always wanted to go to big cities and potentially different countries. And to make that happen, I dedicate my time to part-time jobs, working for 2 years after high school, and it allowed me to do a voluntary service in Seattle for 2 years, and that's where I learned my English there and came back during COVID and learned about finance and working with my uncle. He's an investor himself. And through working with him, I was able to learn about finance and income statement and all that. And then let me come to BYU to study finance. And come to BYU, I didn't know anything about investment banking, but through club meetings and different courses, I learned about investment banking. I feel like it was the path I wanted to pursue. So I started recruiting for banking and was not really successful last year. So we recruited again this year and they didn't offer.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow, there's so much to dig into there. I didn't even know you were from Taiwan, dude. I'm from Taiwan. Which part of Taiwan are you from?
I'm from Jiayi.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's that is that is definitely in the countrysides. So when did you come over to the States?
Around 20 years old. It was a voluntary missionary service.
Okay. Oh, so like super late then. You like
Yeah.
basically were already in college in Taiwan and then you came over?
No, I didn't go to college in Taiwan. I didn't know what I want to do at the time, so I thought I just want to do like learn as much as possible and maybe put it into a situation where I was not comfortable and so I can learn. And I thought like the service would be a good way. So I worked for 2 years to save all the money I earned, and likely just come to the state to do service and learn English along the way.
So literally when you came at 20 years old, you didn't really speak English to now you're pretty much fluent.
I wouldn't say it's fluent. There's still definitely like a lot of things I can improve on English, but I just glad I was able to have the opportunity to learn. And I didn't know any English when I was in Taiwan, and of course they teach you like the basic English, like how are you? Like I'm
Yeah.
fine, thank you, and you and those kind of stuff. But you don't really use it in Taiwan. People don't speak English to
Right.
each other.
Right.
But when it comes to the United States, you actually had a chance to speak to others. And I think that really helped me a lot.
That's crazy, man. I mean, I definitely respect that because I I moved from Taiwan to the States when I was 9. And for the first 2 years, I just didn't say a single word. Like in fourth and fifth grade, my classmates thought I was mute. And I suddenly it suddenly clicked, I think, in sixth grade. And that was like the first time I opened my mouth and said something in English and everyone was like shocked. But it's just like and obviously like that was when I was 9. I know like in terms of learning new languages, typically the older you get, the harder it becomes, right? Like it's something about our brain. Like when we're younger, it's a lot easier for us to learn stuff as kids. I can't even tell that you only came to the States after you turned 20. So that's pretty impressive. But uh, but okay, so then you came to BYU. So you left Taiwan. You came to BYU basically after COVID then, or during COVID.
After COVID in
Okay.
2021. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Um, and then so you first discovered investment banking from a club you joined on campus. And then what you decided to recruit for it last year. So basically you're saying you already went through recruiting once And that was for summer 2024 then, I guess.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. So then did you just kind of reclass into the following class then to re-recruit again this year, or how did that work?
Yeah, I recruited as a junior, but well, I'm a junior right now, but recruited as a sophomore. So basically, I just extended another year to get into investment banking.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, we've had a lot of students that have done something similar in Wall Street Mastermind. And so I think that's a pretty smart, well, I'll say it's a smart strategy if you are really committed and you're willing to do whatever it takes to make it work the second time. Right? Because you're basically going all in. And I think really only in my experience, only the people that are just absolutely dead set on getting into banking are willing to do that, right? But also, I've noticed that, I mean, a lot of times as human beings, like just if your back is against the wall and you go all in on something, then you tend to get better results because you kind of burn the bridges, right? Like there's no going back. And I think the other part of it too is obviously, uh, anytime you've gone through something one time, even if it's unsuccessful, if you use that as a learning experience, then typically the second time you go through it again, you're going to do better, right? Um, so anyway, I think that's pretty cool. But I guess before we kind of dive into your entire journey, can we kind of share with people what the outcome was first? Like, what was the offer that you ended up with this time around?
Yeah, I'm going to Rothschild next summer in their New York office.
Okay, that's awesome, man. What did it feel like when you found out you got the offer?
So actually the MD called me, he's an alum, and he told me he got an offer. It took us, a week to get back to you, and he kind of like apologized a little bit. And I was yelling at the phone, and he probably got scared a little bit because I was so happy. But but yeah, I was so happy to receive that offer. And it was a great outcome, and I'm just glad I landed eventually.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, he must be used to that kind of reaction, to be honest. Every time I ask someone like, "Hey, how did you react when you got the call?" It's usually some combination of I was screaming, I was crying, I was like speechless. It's usually like one of those three. So, um, excuse me. Um, that's cool. And I assume you're here on your own and your family's also back in Taiwan, right? What do they say when they heard the news?
They don't actually know what investment banking is and how hard it is to get into investment banking. They just thought, well, just an internship for your junior summer, and that's great. You have like internships lined up for you. You don't have to worry about your job, and they have no clue about how hard and the career trajectory in the future, and just nothing about finance.
Yeah,
They don't know a lot about finance, and they're so my dad is a teacher. My mom, he doesn't know like a lot of things. She just is a stay-home mom. So that's a reaction. But they were really happy for me.
yeah. And I mean, there's like nothing even remotely close to investment banking in Jai, I assume. So, like, probably have like no exposure to it whatsoever, right? That makes sense. So let's go back to the beginning. Like, obviously you had already done a bunch on your own prior to joining us last year or a year ago because you already went through basically one recruiting cycle, right? So um, talk to us about some of the things that you were already doing prior to Wall Street Mastermind. Like, how were you going about it? What did you do to, I don't know, prepare for the process? Like, what were some of the resources you were leveraging? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, so before joining the program, I was basically just going over 400 question guides. And well, first of all, it's really hard to understand without a finance background. And second of all, you're just memorizing all the answers, and people can tell if you actually know the concept versus you just memorizing and giving the answers that way. And secondly, I networked pretty hard with the upperclassmen. I didn't know what networking was, so I didn't reach out to full-time bankers before joining the program, and which ended up I didn't get any um first round of interviews last year, and
Hmm.
I thought that was the main reason why. And I think lastly, I was trying to get all internship experiences, and I didn't know what kind of internship experiences are good for investment banking, so I just did a ton, but they're not really useful to investment banking.
Hmm. Got it. So you didn't know like what the relevant internships were. So like what kind of internships were you doing then?
I was doing like on-campus internship, like consulting, working on a project on a team to solve the problem. It's like social impact project, and I was doing like sourcing internship. Um, I think I did two sourcing internship. But I had no skill to get into like private equity or venture capital. I didn't know how to prepare for that and to prepare even for banking at the time.
Gotcha. Okay. So you were doing the wrong internships. You were networking with the wrong people or like people that were still in school and basically couldn't do anything for you. And then in terms of interview prep, you were kind of just memorizing the 400 questions guide. Okay. Um, so you didn't get a single interview then for summer 2024, or you got some?
No, zero.
Gotcha. Um, and I guess that's probably a natural segue into my next question, which is like, so then what made you decide then last April to like join Wall Street Mastermind? Like, because there's so many things you could have done, right? And I feel like there's so many resources out there now of all types. Like, share Wall Street Mastermind. There's other programs that also offer coaching. There's also guides, there's financial modeling courses, there's boot camps, there's a bunch of things you could do, right? Like, so how did you decide on like it seemed like at some point you decided, okay, I'm gonna try to re-recruit for the following cycle, and I'm gonna try to change my approach and do things more effectively this time. But like as you're making that decision around how to change your approach, like or what resources to use, like what made you decide on this, I guess.
Yeah, so I would say I've been always hardworking person. So in Taiwan, I worked for 2 years and allowed me to do a missionary service in Seattle for another 2 years. And came back, I wanted to get my education done in the US. So I worked for another year and invested along the way during COVID and got really lucky to from my education to my investing at BYU. And I know I can work hard, but I just don't know how. And sometimes if your goal is to go north and you don't know how to do it, maybe you're heading to a wrong direction or you're doing things wrong. So I just need a proven track method to allow me to um like excel and hopefully eventually landing my goal in investment banking. So I found out about Wall Street Mastermind through you. You messaged me on LinkedIn I think a year ago. And I think my title was aspiring investment banker, but I have not done any like relevant internship experiences. I was really glad they reached out to me and tell me, hey, you have this program and why don't we try it out? And at first I was really skeptical because you say it's 90%, which is pretty high success rate. I've never seen the success rate that high before, and especially in this market, the success rate or acceptance rate is 1%. So
Right.
I started listening to a lot of podcasts and about the success, just like what we're doing right now. And I just listened to this one podcast. Um, where he graduated well he's from BYU, so he's an upperclassman, and I know the person, so I talked to him and he said he this is a really great program to be part of, and which helped him to then offer at a great bank at Bulge Bracket. So that's why I was able to decide my mind and to join this program. And to be frankly, last year I received two super days from JP Morgan, but that is not for investment banking. It was for private wealth management. And I knew that I wanted to do investment banking instead of doing asset management or private bank. So I turned down those two super days. I basically had my back on the wall, and I just know that I want to do banking no matter what, and I need a method to get into this space. I've been trying it once in the past year, and it was not successful, and clearly I was not doing the things right. So that's how I decided to join Wall Street Mastermind.
Gotcha. That's so cool. Who's the upperclassman, by the way?
Isaac?
Ah, okay. Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Great guy. So I think something you said is really key here, which is first of all, obviously hard work is a prerequisite, right? Like if you don't work hard, this is probably not for you, right? Like even if you come into the program, you still have to work really, really hard. It's not like this is not like a get rich quick scheme where oh, if you come in the program, then investment making offers will just be handed to you on a silver platter. Like it doesn't work like that, right? But even if you have hard work, a lot of people I think are working hard, but not on the right things, right? And so it's to your point, like if you're trying to get from point A to point B, point A being where you are currently, and point B is like this investment banking offer, it's just like you trying to drive somewhere without using GPS and you've never been there before, like you're probably going to make a lot of wrong turns. You're probably going to, end up lost. Or, if you do get there somehow, it's probably going to take a lot longer, right? If you get there at all, right? And unfortunately, with banking recruiting, it is time sensitive because even if you get an offer, but it took you a lot longer, typically that means that the offer is not going to be as good, right? Because like all the best banks recruit the earliest, right? Like the elite boutiques finish recruiting before your sophomore year is even over, right? And then like bulge bracket banks finish after that, then middle market banks, then after that you're going down to lower middle market or regional boutique banks, and there's a significant difference in terms of your career trajectory, in terms of your exit opportunities, in terms of even just how much money you can make, right? Like I was looking at survey data from Liquidity, and he basically surveyed, I think, almost 1,800 investment bankers, and they basically reported how much money they made. And he had people from first year analysts all the way up to like first year VPs. So this was like basically bankers throughout like the first 7 years of their career. And if you start at an elite boutique, or if you stay at an elite boutique for the first 7 years of your banking career, I think your average earnings is going to be like $2.6 million during your first 7 years. It's like
Wow.
650K by the time you're a VP one, right? If you are at a bulge bracket or a middle market bank, I think it drops down to like 2.1 or $2.2 million, which is still a lot, but that's 500K less, right? $500,000, which I think most people would say is a lot. And then if you drop down to like the regional boutique level, over the first 7 years, it's like 1.6 million instead of 2.6 million. Still a lot for like by most standards. You can make $1.6 million in the first 7 years of your career. That's like a lot of people don't make that in their entire careers, right? But that's $1 million less than if you were to start an elite boutique. And so, like, the point being, how quickly you can get to your destination does actually matter, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm just going to do it on my own because it's cheaper. I'm going to save some money. Like, you can find everything on Google for free. But it's like, yeah, but how much longer did it take you? And how much salary and how much year-end bonus are you leaving on the table by going to an inferior firm, right? There's a cost there too. It's just less visible, at least for now. It will be more visible later. You will feel it in your bank account when you're making less money, right? And so I think that was really, I think that was really smart of you, which is to say, okay, I know I worked hard and I tried and it didn't work. And the reason why it didn't work wasn't because I didn't work hard, but I did all these things. I got internships, I networked, I studied the guides, but I didn't get a single interview. And so obviously whatever I'm doing is not working. Right. And so I think that's the other takeaway here, that I got, which is a lot of times people are like doing things and it's not working. And then they just keep doing more of the same things. Like they don't stop and think like, okay, maybe I should try a different approach. Right. Because there's a saying, which supposedly is about Einstein, but I don't know. It's like the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and over again and expect different results. Right. But like a lot of times that's what people do. And so um I think it's great that, you know, you didn't have like an ego or whatever, and just kind of like you weren't stuck in your ways and you're just like, okay, I'm going to do something different. And that's cool that you were able to kind of come across Isaac, who was also in the program, obviously. So, um, did you have to? I assume that when you decided to join this program, then you had to go and like talk to your parents about it and get them to support you with it, or did you invest in this on your own, or did you have your parents help you?
I paid this on my own, and there's a program like you can pay something up front and pay later and use that program because I'm funding my education here at BYU. I don't have a
Yeah.
ton of money, and my parents they're not funding my school, and they're not really supporting me to come to state. They wanted me to stay in Taiwan, go to college there, and all that. But I just made my own decision, so I'm on my own. I have to find some ways to do it.
Did they just want you to stay in Taiwan because they wanted you to be close to them, or like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
that's pretty typical. Wow. Okay. Yeah, man, that's it's not an easy thing that you did there, right? Like leaving your family behind, coming to a brand new country on your own, just kind of like making, kind of building the life that you want for yourself, regardless of maybe what other people want for you. Um, I think that's admirable because I see a lot of people who, especially in our culture, in like Taiwanese culture, Asian culture, I see a lot of kids that, I mean, we're so conditioned to just like be obedient, listen to what our parents want us to do and whatever. But I see a lot of, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I do see a lot of people that live that way and then they end up not super happy in the long run because they're not really doing the things that they want to do, and like ultimately it's your life, right? And so you kind of have to, I feel like you have to kind of live it the way that you want. Um, so what, let's talk about, let's talk about after you joined then, like over the past year, obviously it's been a grueling journey, I'm sure. Um, what were some of the things that you worked on then after you came into the program? Like, how did your approach change from the last recruiting cycle when you ended up getting no interviews? Like, what were some of the things that you learned that you did differently that you felt like were the biggest difference maker for you, I guess?
Yeah, I think when I first joined the program, the first thing we do is to edit your resume and your cover letters. And those are important, the first step to get into investment banking. Because if your resume or cover letters are not good, they wouldn't even look at you, even look, because there are a ton of people trying to get into investment banking, right? And if you don't have a good first impression, they're not going to interview you or spending time talking to you.
Yeah.
And secondly, you're working on I think your behaviors. Um, that's really important in investment banking because they want to find a person that fits a not only fits a company, but the person they want to work with long term, for 2 years, from 9 o'clock in the morning to 12 or 1 to 2 p.m.s, and a.m.s in the morning, which is such a long time. And lastly, I worked on the technicals. And technicals, they're not that difficult. It's not like science. But if you're working hard, you can just get it done within 20 hours. And that's pretty helpful in the program as well.
Hmm, got it. Um, I guess what like these are all things that you were already doing last time though, right? Like you probably worked on your resume last time. I'm sure you did interview prep last time. I'm sure you worked on behaviorals. You worked on technicals. Like what really changed though? Because you're still working on all the same things, right? And
Yeah,
even
I would say,
even
yeah,
network.
go ahead.
I know you didn't mention networking, but like you also networked last time too, just like you networked this time. So like, what do you think enables you to get different results? I guess.
So I would say behavioral for behaviors, it's pretty difficult, especially for international students, because you don't know what they're looking for, and you don't know how you're going to present your story, what tone you should use, what's the speed of your speaking, like should you speak fast, and where you should emphasize, certain things, and those are really hard to grasp, and you don't really get feedback on that. But in the program, you have thing called hot seat, or a coach would just coach you and do a mock interview with you for 1 hour. And that way you can learn like what kind of mistake you made. And they give you feedback on real honest feedback because a lot of coaches have done it in the past. They are recruiters on both bracket with boutique firms. So they know like exactly what they're looking for and they can tell you, hey, this is the things you should improve next time. And next time when we do it, to see like how you progress.
Yeah.
And for networking, I didn't know how to network. I just networked with upperclassmen before. But this time I have a list of 1,000 bankers I reach out to. And I've reached out to maybe a couple hundred. And I've had a call maybe around 100 calls with both alums and people who didn't go to BYU. So that's pretty helpful because you're keeping track with people. And in the program, I also learned how to network with people, and there are frameworks you should go about doing that, and which is pretty helpful. And for technicals, in the program, I it's not just memorizing the guides. I think I learned how finance work from in and out, and I learned like all the concepts and how they link together. So it's not just like, hey, you have the question, you just plug in this and you can answer the question. But I really learned how finance work in and out, and I was able to use that to then answer any questions that come my way technically.
Mm. That's great, man. And I think also being an international student too, I'm sure it was like harder for you too, right? Because not every firm is willing to sponsor, and even the firms that are willing to sponsor, typically the bar is higher to get hired as an international student because they have to go through more of a hassle to hire you and sponsor your visa and this and that. Like, did you encounter any challenges with that, I guess, as you were going through the recruiting process? Like, for example, was it hard figuring out like what firms even sponsor, what firms should I even be spending time on, or how did you kind of go about doing that?
I would say on Wall Street Oasis, there is a list of the banks that sponsor. But other than that, I think the bank would hire you if you are, you know, a good candidate. So you don't need to worry about if the bank sponsor or not. You just apply everywhere and see where you get. And if you get any tractions, you should network with everyone there. And but finding out which bank sponsors definitely will save you time. But all in all, you can still talk to them. And because I know I'm dedicated to this, I don't care if I talk to, three more people this week or not. So I
Yeah.
just reach out to every single one that I care about and the banks that they work at, I care about. So that way I think I have a right mindset and I don't really that if a bank doesn't sponsor coming to my mind, then don't network there. Maybe they sponsored last year, this year they don't, but you never know. And just it changes over, every year. So you want to be proactive and reach out to every banks and apply everywhere. That's my approach.
I like that. Um, and I think because you have no idea how many international students, like the most common question we get from international students is like, hey, do you have like an exact list of the firms that sponsor? Because everyone's kind of looking to I don't want to say cut corners, but like I guess they want to be efficient, right? So they just want to only talk to people that work at firms that would actually sponsor. You're one of the few international students I've seen that has the different mentality of like, I don't even care if they sponsor or not. I'm just going to talk to everyone and see what happens. But I think you're actually onto something because you're right. What most people don't realize is like, and even these lists that you see on Wall Street Oasis and whatever, um, the firms change their sponsorship policies like from year to year. Like we've seen firms sponsor, like JP Morgan a few years ago sponsor, and like the following year they said they won't sponsor, and it's just like, well, now your list is outdated, right? Like you might be looking at a list that says JP Morgan sponsors, but like they don't. And then we've also seen different international students recruiting for the same cycle say that the same firm. Oh, one guy would say the same. One guy would say the firm sponsors, and the other guy would say the firm doesn't sponsor because they've been told different things by whoever they talk to, right? And so it's like at that point, well, I don't know who's telling the truth. And I think sometimes what happens too is, like you said, if you're really good and they want you, then they'll be willing to sponsor you, right? But like the onus is on you to make them want you, right? And the guy that is being told that they do sponsor is probably a better candidate and they want him to apply versus the guy who is being told they don't sponsor. Sometimes like maybe you're not a good candidate and they're like, don't bother, right? And so they just tell you they don't sponsor to let you down nicely. Like, so you also can't just, in my opinion, you shouldn't just take other people's word for it because if you just ask someone and they're like, "Oh yeah, I heard this firm doesn't sponsor," and then because of that, you don't apply to that firm. But in reality, maybe they do sponsor, or maybe they would have sponsored you, but they just didn't want to sponsor that other guy, and you just talked to the wrong guy, right? And so it's just like you owe it to yourself to find out for yourself if the firm actually sponsors or not, right? And also, I always tell people it's like if you really need to know, then get on networking calls with people at the firm and ask them directly, right? And also don't just ask bankers because sometimes bankers don't know like whether the firm sponsors or not. Like their job is not to think about these things. Their job is to just like be a banker. Sometimes you have to get on calls with people on the recruiting team and ask them that question, right? Like if I want the answer, like I'm always going to go straight to the source, right? As opposed to getting it through hearsay. Because it's otherwise, I would say, yeah, your approach also works if you're not afraid of just like putting in the work, just like talk to everybody and you never know what you'll get out of it. We've also had students that were international students and then they apply to firms that said they don't sponsor on the application. Like because not all firms say that, right? Like on some firms, they'll say in the job posting, like, we don't sponsor explicitly. And then a lot of firms actually don't say that. Um, but anyway, this girl that I'm thinking about, she applied anyway, even though the job posting said the firm doesn't sponsor. And then she went through the interview process and then she aced it and then they gave her the offer and she had to fill out the paperwork. And obviously, when she fills out her paperwork, she had to disclose that she has OPT or whatever. And we were like kind of nervous because we're like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna rescind the offer or if they're gonna say anything because they said they don't sponsor. So I followed up with her like a couple of weeks later. I was like, hey, whatever ended up happening with your offer, like, did they let you keep it? And then she was like, oh yeah, they didn't even ask me anything about it. Like they didn't say anything. And then and she's like working at this bulge bracket bank now. And so like my point is, you just never know, right? Like you just never know. But at least give yourself the opportunity to go through the interview. If you don't get to the interview, even have the you don't even have the chance to impress them or win them over or show them that you're worth sponsoring, right? But if you can at least get to the interview and make sure you're well prepared, then you give yourself that chance. And the worst case scenario, yeah, you get rejected. Okay, fine, you didn't get the offer. Or worst case scenario, oh, you go all the way through the process and you actually get the offer and then it gets rescinded because they find out that you need sponsorship and they don't want to sponsor. And yeah, that's gonna be a shitty feeling for sure. But like the other way to look at it is like you still got valuable experience of going through the entire interview process. You got an extra practice for what going through a real interview is like, and that's going to make you more prepared for the next interview. Right? It wasn't like a waste of time by any means. Right? Um, so anyway, that's my little rant on recruiting as an international student. But I guess my last question for you on that note is now that you're on the other side of this process, you come out of it with an offer. Um, do you have like what's your best piece of advice that you can kind of pass on to our audience, like, for people who are maybe still going through recruiting now or about to go through the recruiting process for the first time? Is there something you learned, maybe someone told you or you figured out on your own along the way that you feel like really made a big difference for you? And anything like that that you can kind of share with other people?
Yeah, I definitely have, a couple of advice. So first of all, is to start early. This is super important because you can never start early. And a lot of these kids, their dads, or moms are bankers, and they started like super young. They knew they wanted to do banking when they were 5, and they started preparing that, like reading finance books, learning how to pitch a stock, and you can really start early. Second is just apply everywhere. I would say I really wanted to go to San Francisco. At the beginning because I really like tech. But ended up going to New York. It's a great firm. I really like the firm. And but you never know. That's the only bank I apply. And in New York, in which I got it. So yeah, just apply everywhere. You never know. And lastly, just um find good mentors. Sometimes it's really hard to identify which one is a good mentor. And I can say I definitely resonate with the program because I have encountered a lot of good people and mentor in the program. And also outside the program as well, I talked to some bankers there. Although they're not as invested in you, but they also give you like really good advice for you to go practice and prepare for your interviews.
Hmm.
And lastly, just never give up. I tried last year, it wasn't successful, and you can still try it next year. There's always opportunities. It comes down to you if you really want a job or not, if you want to do investment banking for your career and to start your career right, or you want to work at, different career paths. It's up to you. I would say one more piece of advice is to learn and grow. I know that I'm not good at presenting, and I'm not good at public speaking because of Taiwanese education. We don't do that. We don't do teamwork. We just care about grades. But I actually took public speaking class this semester. It definitely helped me a lot with recruiting. And I learned how to like talk about myself and talk about why I want to work in this bank. Do signposting, from the class and also from this program. So just find out what you're not good at and just spend time to improve on that.
Yeah, that's great, man. I mean, definitely resonate with you on the Taiwanese education piece. I mean, there are some things that they're very good at, but it's definitely very different here, and they don't really teach you a lot of the very important soft skills. I feel like it's just like memorizing textbooks and being good at taking exams, and I went through that myself as well. Um, one quick question. That was really great advice, by the way. So thank you for sharing that. One question, just out of curiosity, like you say you only applied to one firm in New York, and obviously that ended up being where you got the offer from. But why specifically Rothschild when you decided to apply to like Rothschild in New York? Like why didn't you apply to any other firms, I guess?
I really enjoy so Rothschild. They come to BYU twice a year, so it was the first info session I went to. I really wanted to work at Rothschild. That was my first bank I wanted to work at. But later on, I found out about all these other banks. They do tech in San Francisco, so it kind of like went out of my mind a little bit. But I just knew that I really wanted to work at Rothschild at the first place, and my main goal at the beginning was I wanted to work at on the Wall Street. And I know Wall Street's in New York, not in San Francisco. So it's kind of like I was like going into a loop. Like eventually, I went back to my original bank and my original place that I wanted to work at.
Gotcha. Okay. So it was like basically as a firm, it was like your top choice, basically.
Mhm.
Got it. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thanks for that, man. That was really helpful advice for our audience. So guys, for those of you who are still with us, if you find yourself in a similar situation, maybe you are a international student, maybe you have already tried doing a bunch of stuff on your own and it didn't work. Maybe you even recruited once already, and now you're trying to recruit it again. Like whatever the situation may be, if you feel like what you're currently doing hasn't been working that well, but you know that you have the work ethic and you're willing to do the work, but you just need some guidance and direction on how to kind of direct your effort and your energy so that it's being put to good use and you're actually getting the results that you should be getting for all that effort. Then I want you to reach out to our team. um, what you can do is go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street's abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And what you can do is book a call with our team. We'll hop on. We'll talk to you about your specific situation because everyone's situation is different, right? Like some people go to target schools, non-target schools, semi-target schools. Some people have good GPAs, some people have lower GPAs, some people have really good resumes, some people have nothing on their resumes. Like we don't know what your situation is unless we talk to you, and there's no one size fits all approach. But depending on what you tell us, in terms of what your goals are, what kind of banks you would like to end up in, what you're currently struggling with, or what you feel like you need a bit more help with. We'll help you at a minimum just lay out kind of like a personalized game plan for what you would need to do to get from where you are right now to where you're trying to go, right? And after that, you can decide whatever you want to do. Like if you want to have us help you implement all the things that we laid out, then obviously we can talk about that if we think it's a good fit. But if you also want to just take that and run with it on your own and go out and try to figure it out, then that's totally cool too, right? Either way is cool with us. We just want to basically provide as much value as possible and help as many people as we can. So if that sounds like it would be helpful for you, then again, go ahead and book that call at www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. And again, the street's abbreviated to ST. All right. So with that said, we're gonna wrap it up here, Clayton. I want to thank you again for taking the time to come on here today and just share your experience with us. This is really helpful for our audience, but also I really enjoy hearing about your entire journey as well. And yeah, big congrats, man, on getting into Rothschild, especially not coming to the States till you're 20, like just all the things you have to overcome along the way. I think it's an amazing story. And yeah, I'm rooting for you, man. I'm really proud of you. And I'm excited to see what you accomplish next summer in New York and really even beyond that. So
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be on.
absolutely, man. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. And until next time, all right?